Side parking.
Oh, it's 11:45. I guess we can start. Is that right? All right. Hey, I don't know how many people are joining us here, but the little caption there, who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? And that's referring to who'd have thought there was an older person's day. I didn't know that. Did anybody out there know there was an older person's day? It's October the 1st. It's International Day of Older Persons. And I'm looking at these pictures and I'm wondering, okay, are these the pictures of wellness? Is this wellness? You see grandmother, grandfather, and grandchild there having fun on one side, and on one side of this, the other side is a nice little illustration of another grandmother, grandfather inside of a heart. So there, the tiny caption, hopefully you can read it on the screen. The older adults will try to bring out the best in you, not stress, not stress you out. Take care of them and let them inspire you. There's some good thoughts, very positive thoughts too, because the elderly have the wisdom of a lifetime behind them, which is very valuable. Okay, let's see here. I'm trying to find my arrows. Here we go. I do like this quote. And I just realized now this quote didn't fill the whole page. Sorry about that. I think it's being recorded. I like this. Keep your drive alive if you want to survive, let alone thrive. So someone here is a poet. But I like that quote, and I thought, you know, after reading it a few times, I thought, yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's a good thought to have in mind as we get older. Okay. First, a few reality points regarding aging. These are the kinds of things anybody who's aging probably does not really want to hear, but it's reality. It's reality. As we get older, we tend to start using the lion's share of healthcare dollars, and that's usually like in the last few years of life. And that's true. That's when everything from critical care to ventilators to drugs to tubes to placement, all of that gets put together. And that costs a lot of money, but it's kind of a reality. Some people can't avoid it. Some people can, which is good. We're not all ending up using, you know, the lion's share of healthcare dollars toward the end of life, but it does happen. So this quote goes back about 4 years, at least as of 2020, estimated that up to 75% of nurses' time will be spent with the older adult. And this came from, let's see, NIH Gerontologic Geriatric Education. This is what they estimated in 2014 as to 2020. There are more estimates coming up your way. So yeah, because time doesn't stand still. It keeps going. It keeps going. I used to say to myself that my worst enemy is time. Sometimes I do. I get up in the morning and I say, "Oh, there's never enough time. Time's my worst enemy." Well, you can't reverse it. You can't change it. You can postpone a little, or you could stretch it out. But ooh, I'm hearing an echo. So these are my thoughts. So in the US, the percentage of persons at least 65 years of age has increased from a 9% to 12% since 1994. Now, okay, that's going to change. It's expected to go all the way, take a big jump to 21% by 2050. making this population the fastest growing of any age group. We used to call this the silver tsunami. I don't know if any of you have heard of that before, but I think of a tsunami wave and it's like overpowering, villages, towns, seasides, people. Well, we're going to have a population of older individuals that's going to be kind of overwhelming to healthcare and to societies at some point in the near future. But I have to, on the positive side, state that, advances in healthcare are responsible for us living longer, and that's true. And this can be said, especially for the baby boom generation, because we're able to take advantage of a lot of those new discoveries since the 1940s, and they keep going and coming and building on each other, hopefully helping us to live a better life, maybe a longer life, a healthier life, and, perhaps a life that's considered well or from a standpoint of wellness. Hopefully those numbers are increasing as well. So boomers have also the higher rates of chronic conditions. The biggest ones, and I looked at a few sources before writing this down. Usually the common denominators tend to be diabetes, obesity, arthritis, heart disease, and dementia. Interesting. I thought the dementia one to be very interesting. But if we're living longer, I would say that increases our odds of having trouble in these areas and some related areas of healthcare. My thoughts on that, I think it makes sense. So this is why I kind of want to steer this in the direction of wellness and not just, hey, I survived cancer, because, and that's a big deal to say I survived cancer. I'm 10 years out and I don't have a return of that. Or heart disease. I had my bypass surgery 15 years ago and I'm still going strong. From a medical model, we might see that as, well, we're free of a certain kind of illness, even though there's a chance that those things will come back and overwhelm us again. At least those don't maybe factor in at this point, because maybe we're taking steps to keep that from happening. So we want to go beyond just simple survival, I think. And I think most of you would probably agree with that. We want to journey into this thing called wellness, no matter what's going on. No matter if we are dealing with chronic illness, no matter if right now we're struggling with something, or even at the end of life, how can we get to that point of wellness, or how can we possibly see wellness when we're at the end of life and things are like looking very bleak? So it's an interesting concept, wellness. And it doesn't necessarily factor into the Western model, of, hey, they're free from this, and this, or they don't have this, and this. They're well. Not necessarily, when you consider so many things go into wellness. Sorry, I think I dwelled on this slide a little too long. Oh, okay. Is aging is inevitable? Okay. Aging is inevitable. I agree with that line. Decline is optional. Yeah, because you can take steps to push that further and further away, or at least as far as you can push it. So which one of those do you choose? I think most of us, if we were given options, I'd say decline is optional, and I'm going to go in that direction, even though bearing in mind aging is inevitable. If that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. And plus, I just really like this slide. It's a nice slide. Well, because it looks like she's got a smile on her face. She's going, "Ah," breathing the fresh air. Yeah, okay, I'm getting older, but guess what? I'm not declining so fast as maybe I'm getting older. And that might feed into like, oh, 70 is the new 60, or maybe, 100 is the new 80. Think about that. So how do we how do we move toward healthier aging? Well, there's some myths, maybe some misconceptions regarding aging, and these were all drawn from NIH. So, physical deterioration is ultimately inevitable. Well, that's not necessarily true. So think about that. Older adults should not exercise, you know. So we know from a previous section, sorry, my editor didn't pull that part out. But we know that that is clearly a myth that older adults should. And they should, the earlier they start that, the better. So you can start that in your middle age years or earlier, carry it on into older age. Older adults need less, or is it more sleep? I guess it depends sometimes on the person, the individual, what's going on, especially if they don't have the CPAP and they have apnea. Then sleeping, then sleeping takes a turn for, another interesting direction. Only women get osteoporosis. I think you all agree with me that that's not the case. So, okay, here's one. Now that I'm older, I will have to completely give up driving. Not yet. There may come a time when you may have to do it, but that doesn't mean when you reach, oh my God, I'm 60. Now I got to give up driving. No. Maybe not even at 70. So, yeah, it's not something you have to like, oh, this is a done deal. Studies are all out. I'm on the downside of this. So it's partly in how you think about this and where you're at as an individual. So as you age, does your brain slow? I think that's an area that you can also address. Doesn't necessarily have to. Maybe the processes slow down, but it doesn't mean that those processes aren't working. There's no point giving up smoking now, or for that matter, any other unhealthy habit. I'm too old, which we know is untrue. You can buy time by giving those unhealthy habits up. You actually start from the moment you give them up to create a better future as you get older. It's a myth. Sex is rare or impossible as you age. That's not true. It might need a little help, but that's not true that it's impossible or so rare that, it ends up in a museum. This person here, or in a book, these two people here, the last people at this age that had sex. Well, we know that's not true. Older adults can't learn things, of course. An old dog can learn new tricks. It depends on the mindset of the old dog. That's what it depends on, really, when you think about it. Well, in our brain and gender class, we show a film. And in this film, there's a 95-year-old picking up a musical instrument for the first time, painting for the first time, and other ways I think that I can't quite remember. But at that age, he was picking up things he'd never done before. So we do it all the time. Depression is normal as we enter old age. 65, gonna be on pills the rest of our life. No. In fact, those pills we depend on when we're younger, maybe for depression and mood disorder, or temporarily can have detrimental effects on individuals as they get older. And sometimes the side effects are a lot worse than the depression. So it's inevitable that older individuals will develop some kind of dementia. Not true. Not true by a long shot. Yes, the longer you live, you might develop some form of dementia, but if, you know, if we're thinking about Alzheimer's, that's not necessarily true. You know, it just depends on what's come before. It depends on what's happened before in many cases. Yeah, genes play a part, of course. I'm not downplaying that. The reason why I say that is my mother died with full-blown Alzheimer's dementia. So thinking, so as a nurse, I'm acutely aware of these.
How do you avoid this? How do you avoid that?
Well, I would say there's a lot of, you know, have you been here on the times when we've talked about brain gains or healthy diets that actually help, well, enhance the brain, keep it healthy, keep the blood vessels and the nerves healthy. Exercise too has been shown to help the brain immensely. Of course, it's going to help the rest of the body. That's the idea, but it's going to help the brain. That's why it's so important. Food too, you know, because those nutrients travel all over the bloodstream and into circulation. And some of those nutrients are actually good for nerves, blood vessels, and enhance certain areas of the brain responsible for things like memory. It's a thought.
How about the effects of salt, oil, and sugar on?
Oh, well, yeah. Boy, that's a deep dive into another direction, but depending on the oils, some oils are healthy. Now, sugars, okay. When I think of sugars, I think of processed sugars, and a lot of those sugars have taken in overwhelming amounts, turn into fat later on. Salt, oh boy. Well, when I think of salt, I think of kidneys. I also think of high blood pressure. And I think about what high blood pressure can do to the brain as well as the rest of the circulation. So, yeah, definitely detrimental developments can occur. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's like current habits, maybe, that need to change. Exactly. I agree with that completely. So, okay, here, I love it. I like bulldogs. Sorry. You can teach an old dog a new trick if he or she is willing to learn. MyWordsOfWisdom.com. I went there and they have a lot of stuff just like, but this is good. And it's true. It's true. It's never too late to pick something up, to learn it, or to in some way, enhance what you already have learned or what you already know. It's never too late. Never too late. I don't know. Some of these are like adages, you know, about aging, stuff like we think, oh, yeah, I've heard that one before. Like you can't teach an old dog new tricks, you know, a bit negative. And some are references we've heard to the aging population, you know. Old age is like everything else. To make a success of it, you have to start young. Those are words of wisdom, rather, too. It's an adage. Yeah, you could treat that as an adage. I, I've really not heard that before, but it makes complete sense to me. Makes complete sense to me. Here's another one too. Men and women don't quit playing because they grow old. Nope. They get old because they quit playing. Oh boy. That one hits home too. That one hits home with me. So yeah, you should not give this up necessarily because, oh, I'm too old to do that. Everybody would think I'm a bit of a freak for trying. No. You get old because you quit playing, whatever it might be, whatever it is. Um, old age is always 15 years ahead or older than I am. That's great for a state of mind, though. That means you're thinking young. You're thinking young, even if your body might be saying, well, that's not true in all departments. But keeping your mind in a positive mode and you're trying to stay younger that way, at least in your thoughts. I think that's pretty cool. Here's one too I like. Every man or woman desires to live long. Who doesn't? No man or woman desires to become old. I would say for the most part, that's true. Unless you have a kind of what is it? Oh, a morbid outlook on life or an Eeyore outlook on life from Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore, the guy who was never he was never positive about anything, and he sounded like it too when he spoke. That's what I remember the most about that character from those Chronicles, Christopher Robin and his stories. Um, People don't love each other at our age. They please each other, and that's all. Well, wait a minute. I disagree with that. I disagree with that completely. Completely. So think about that one. By the way, I believe this PowerPoint's being recorded and it will be on the website. All right, here's one too. Sex at 80 is like sex at 80 is trying to shoot pool with a rope. I'm sorry. What? I don't think I need to explain that one. For a minute there, I'd forgotten I included that, but the secret to a good old age is simply an honorable pact and solitude, maybe. Okay, so maybe you're coming to grips with this. Maybe you're eventually coming to grips with the fact that you're getting older, but also you're at peace with that idea. That's kind of what I get from that reference or adage or saying sort. Here's one. Learning is an ornament in prosperity, a refuge in adversity, and a provision in old age. Yes. I don't think before I read this that I ever thought in those terms, but as I read it and I look at it, when I originally put this up, I read it several times and I thought, dang, that's right. That one is really right. So think about it, whether you agree or disagree, or like, I'm on the fence. So, all right, this is where 80 is the new 70. Or I probably had that backwards. Oh my God. Do I have that backwards? I don't think 80 is the new 70. For a minute, I thought, oh my God, did I just put that in reverse? Or better yet, 100 is the new 80. Now, in some ways, because we're living longer and maybe healthier lives, because we have more knowledge, we have more, not necessarily at our fingertips, but we have access to many more ways to make our lives better. And so maybe we can put those things off. And so, yeah, at the end, this was a list of, I don't know, it ran down the page as I was scrolling. I thought, oh my God. I could probably, if I created 12 slides, I could probably fit these in. But because that's how many of them were. I thought, well, somebody's got some words of wisdom here, you know, to maybe take a little more serious than others. All right, some impacts. Now, I pulled these impacts out of my book here on gerontology and nursing, which I found valuable. I had to do it for a continuing education course a few years ago, and I found the book so useful and so helpful that I held on to it beyond the point where, hey, I guess I can throw this in the book bin now. I thought, this is good stuff. I'm going to hold on to it. But as we age, you know, in general, this doesn't mean this applies to everybody, but if you look at the numbers, you know, physiologically, there are going to be some changes, some mostly down changes, unfortunately. I would say, yeah, it looks like all of these have a negative effect. Cardiac output, heart rate, maximal heart rate, vital capacity, how much oxygen uptake, our own muscle mass. I want to say strength, which is another reason why we want to integrate here. Exercise, yes. Cardiovascular, move, but also weights, whether they're lighter or heavier, whatever suits you, it's working muscles. And at the same time, maintaining, in some cases, growing them. And you're less likely to have things like fractures if you're maintaining muscle strength, whether that means in the lower legs, which we call hips and around the hips. That's where a lot of fractures occur from falls as we get older. It's not that younger people don't fall, but a lot of people as they get older, you know, they fall and they get fractured femur, maybe if, what is it? Good Lord, I'm having a brain fart. Well, I'll come back up to the higher point here, fractured hip. So those tend to be more prevalent, but it's not uncommon for, help me out here anatomy wise, Ivan, this bone, this, the shin bone's connected to the, what is this again? The technical word. Tibia, yes, tibial fractures. Okay, sorry, I do have a couple of, some parts of this fall out on me. But yes, I can recognize.
Water.
I had 2 bottles of water already this morning, but yeah. But okay, so that's, you know, bone mineralization is down. In fact, I had a bone mineralization test and it was found I have osteopenia, which is a mild form of osteoporosis. And so the doc said, well, Rob, more vitamin D and calcium. Okay. Granted, you're out a lot, but you're going to have to integrate more calcium-rich foods. If you don't, you're going to have to take a supplement. So that's, what can I say? Renal function goes down. I mean, that's, you know, part of the, I want to say, of a downturn in some of the blood vessels and structures of the kidney and the urinary system that, well, lack of a better way of putting it, they naturally, you know, don't regenerate like cells in the different organs, including skin, muscle, everything. They don't regenerate as much or as completely. Taste and smell have a tendency to go down. I always wondered, you know, older individuals, there are many reasons why they may not eat. I have heard it said, you know, my grandfather used to say, well, I don't want to eat because nothing tastes good anymore. So apparently, oh my God, I left out a 0 and a 1, pardon me. How do you go from 80% to 0? That probably should have been 80, could have been, oh, good Lord. I left out a 0 or a number,
Yeah.
probably 90. So I apologize for that. My editor was falling behind.
Seem to be.
Yeah, I was surprised at that too. And I don't know how much of that has to do with taste buds, oral care, sinuses, all of these olfactory. I mean, they go into, what we smell, what smells good, what we taste, what tastes good. I'm wondering if that has an impact on smell. I don't know. I didn't investigate that. I'm kind of venturing a guess.
Well, they say our cillaries dry up, and so maybe that has something to do with.
Possibly, I just remember my grandfather saying, nothing tastes good today. I'm not gonna eat. I said, Grandpa, you gotta eat. You used to love eggs and bacon. So nothing smells good anymore. Nothing tastes good anymore. Yeah, well, now I understand where maybe that is coming from. Well, and our metabolic rate tends to decrease too, as well. I think exercise can help pull that back up, and diet can help pull that up and maintain it better. Now nutritionally, God, if I had to enumerate everything nutritionally, I'd have to take 3 or 4 slides. So I tried to like pick and choose. So water, because as we age, we have a reduced sense of thirst, and so we don't know we're being dehydrated as well. That's why, the age, you should make sure you're maintaining hydration status, because it can affect the kidneys too. Fiber. Constipation tends to be an issue. And if your diet is low in fiber, that becomes a problem. It's not that I interviewed every elderly individual I ever took care of, but 9 times out of 10, they were on some sort of bowel care. So that makes sense. They had troubles. This is how they stay regular. I agree with that. But if, supplements aside, if you've got a diet that's adequate, you've taken care of your fiber needs. Calcium, okay. Absorption of calcium has a lot to do with the acidity of your digestive system, especially the stomach. Now, reduced acidity means reduced absorption of calcium. Now, that plays a very delicate part if you're used to taking proton pump inhibitors or H2 blockers, because those will block those glands that create that acid. So if you're doing that constantly, that might make things a bit worse. So maybe you have to think about modifying your diet some in order to absorb calcium a lot better. I take calcium supplements because I have a very, very tough time with GERD. Yeah. So I won't go into details. Vitamin B12. This also has to do with gastric acid impairment. And again, anything that decreases gastric acid production is going to interfere with B12. Vitamin D is one of those, if you're getting, quite a bit of outdoors exposure. I mean, it's one that we take it through the skin, because synthesis of vitamin D is troublesome. And if we can't get that through sunlight and absorbing it through the skin to create that, then of course we have to take the vitamin supplements of vitamin D. So these are just a few that I just pulled out of there. I thought, oh my God, these are all good, but I can't list them all. Just some impacts, just some impacts. What are the upsides? Oh, it's like, okay, what's the upside of all this? Well, as we age, we tend to become, with experience, better problem solvers. I like that. Now, also as we age, we also have more of an awareness, self-awareness maybe, awareness of our own mortality. I'd say that's an upside. Now, maybe as we get older, there are more time to make choices, which is good, especially when it comes to the workforce. Maybe we're not completely retiring, and it creates more free time, but we're still in the workforce a little bit. Volunteering might become easier too. You know, you really want to volunteer for these things, but you can't right now. You're working full time. And, you know, a lot of elderly individuals who've reached retirement are doing a lot of volunteer stuff, keeping active, contributing. Okay, yeah, this was taken from Psychology Today, June 26, 2020. Probably should have moved this over here, moved that over here. I'll talk to my editor about that in the rewrite. Okay, as we age, you may disagree with this, but maybe we have less pressure. If we're in the workforce, we're all faced with pressure to get things done and to do it right. Right? Does that make sense? And that's a pressure to achieve. When we retire, maybe there's less pressure to achieve and more free time, more time to do things you want to do, you know, that you'll enjoy, lift your spirits. And I like this, special job opportunities that you probably or may not have had or, you know, couldn't avail yourself of when you're in the workforce. Now those opportunities are right there in front of you, which is good. Maybe you can pursue a different vocation other than the one you chose, you know, during your work years. And gratitude. It's not that you can't exercise gratitude or, you know, realize the importance of it to you. You can at any point in life. But I think as we get older, we begin to look at life and see gratitude in a different way over a lifetime. And that might actually lead to reconciliation. You know, if relationships have been strained throughout, you know, most of your years, maybe it's a time you'll have time to do it and time to think about it and patch up old resentments. And so I see gratitude as figuring pretty heavy as an upside in all this. In fact, I think back in, was it December? Somebody come and who was the writer of that book? Because I bought his book. And it's about gratitude. Doggone it. I can't think of his name now.
Kevin?
Yes. I bought his book. I haven't gotten all the way through. Like all the other books sitting on my nightstand. But yes, gratitude, something we can cultivate, something that we need to, I say need to cultivate. Okay, so my question to you is this: how do you look at health? How do you see health? I see it from a standpoint of, you know, somebody who worked in nursing for a long time. And what does it mean to be alive in old age? What does it mean to feel well and healthy as we get older, you know? We were brought up as steeped in as nurses in a Western viewpoint, even though we're introduced to a more holistic view of things. We're steeped in the Western view, you know, absence of illness, disease. Oh, great, then we're all healthy. Well, that does not fit the definition very well anymore. So yeah, we're used to, as nurses, docs, whatever profession in healthcare, we're measuring it by the lab values or diagnostic values or, oh, they did this today versus what they did yesterday, or they're no longer on a ventilator. Now they're only on oxygen. So that's how we measure, health. This is now, they're healthier, they're better. Well, yeah, and that may be true, but there are other aspects to health that may not be included in all that. And there are. Yeah, we look at it, as a society when it comes to, all right, how many people died of this? How many people died this year? All mortality rates, all, everything added up. Well, it's more than mortality, right? Some of those people might have died and they were very much at peace and well with that, regardless of the illness. That's an aspect I think they try to teach new nurses. It's hard to get away from the Western model, though. But I do see it integrated in courses in professional nursing. Because I used to team teach a course here at Sac State in professional nursing. And how more of a holistic approach is more, it has a more healing effect versus, okay, we got you out of the woods, you're no longer septic, the antibiotics worked. All right, well, or we can't do anything about this chronic illness, but we pulled you out of the state of exacerbation of this illness. So it means a lot more than that. It's not just statistics. Yes, the numbers that the media see, that the media puts out there and the public sees, or even what's in the pertinent studies, it's kind of like death rates, survivability rates, especially when you're looking at cancer, just as an example. We tend to see wellness or, on that continuum of healthy or well and not healthy, unwell, ill, like a long continuum. So, but again, it's more than that. It's not just a set of statistics given this illness or cancer or this disease. Because what can those numbers, what can those statistics, what can the data tell us about quality of life? Because quality of life is going to be a little different for everybody. Wouldn't you agree with that to some extent? Well, we can survive cancer for sure, but, or whatever illness, heart disease, a major, heart attack. But how do we look at quality of life or wellness beyond some of the numbers and values given for survivability and I just dodged a bullet kind of thing? You have to start looking outside of these quantitative things and maybe looking more toward qualitative, I want to say, aspects. So qualities of wellness, you can't really infer those, I guess is what I'm trying to say in the end by the numbers. You can't really infer that somebody is well, they're doing great, they're healthy as a horse, blah, 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 blah. These things are not as tangible. So how well are you really doing? Get into was like, well, what are your blood counts today? Oh, they're looking great. How are you feeling today? That may be a different thing altogether. Yeah, reiterating that as another point, numbers don't reflect the quality of life or the life that individual is living. I mean, it can, but it may not always. It may not always. So there are some limitations to using a strictly Western model.
I recently read a paper that our health was dependent upon 10% lifestyle, 10% medical intervention, and 80% attitude.
I like that. Well, yeah, because you can change your attitude. At least that's the rumor.
It's
And
only been
is it
changed.
it's probably easier to do that than changing the medical stuff
Or your lifestyle.
or your lifestyle, which, yes, that's harder to change. You're absolutely right. Absolutely. So, okay, I like this. God, I looked at so many of these, I don't know what you would call them, flower petaled or, these different illustrations of what health looks like. Even in the presence of illness, even in the presence of disease, there's dimensions. There are dimensions to wellness. And you can see by this picture that there's a lot of overlapping, there's a lot of interplay there. And it's not just absence of this disease or this illness or this cancer or whatever it is. There's a whole bunch of facets to this. So, okay, we know about exercise and nutrition with aging brings about positive results. Yes, yes. And all the studies and indicators bear that out. I don't think I've ever read a study that says these have no factor at all. Never read a study that said that. Or that said, oh, all these bad habits, oh, they're actually great for you. So, we all know regular exercising. We all know eating a healthier diet, even if, that includes steps, and exercise is going to include steps too. Okay. Rome wasn't built in a day. So the pyramid well, as I'm looking at the screen, that would be on my left. To you, it may be on your right. But the one I'm looking at first here that has the puppy dog on it, this is more or less Maslow. I don't know if any of you heard of Maslow, Abraham Maslow. He created a hierarchy of needs, and at the bottom, of course, was, gosh, how can we realize anything above that if we're not getting physiologic needs satisfied first? And then, of course, it builds on that. And there's the description on need examples is a good one too, I think. But, then on top of that, safety. Everybody also needs social needs. We all have social needs because I'll tell you this, loneliness is a killer. And sometimes people simply don't prepare food for themselves because why? I don't have anybody to share it with anymore, so why should I make it? I have heard patients say that. Why should I put effort into this? Oh my God, I can't stay here forever, and talk. But when we get back, when I come and see you again, I want to talk to you more. So this is a great pyramid. I think anybody who goes through nursing, psychology, social sciences of any type, gerontology, you name it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is usually still there and applicable. I don't know, there may be replacements for it, but for me, it still works. I like it. But I know there are nuances and there's new discoveries, new ways of looking at, getting our needs met and aging and wellness. But I still think, at least for this, it applies. There was another pyramid I really wanted to put up here, but I could not find it in media form. I think I searched for an hour on the internet, and I searched different search engines too, and I couldn't find it. It's in a book, but I could not fetch it out of a website, and I tried different websites too to see if they had anything like this. But this one here, they have at the bottom a more of a, and this is where I want to say that wellness, that inclusion of so many different aspects of wellness and health. This kind of addresses that a little more in the same kind of pyramid way. And I wish I had that other pyramid because it looked, you could visually see what it's going over, why this was so applicable to aging. But I'm going to do the best I can with this. At the bottom, and I think in conjunction with physiological needs, etc., you have belonging. All right. Whatever tribe, community, loved ones, etc., a sense of belonging. That may be part of one of those actualization things too. Eating wisely, the 80% rule, you know, plant, slant, wine, you know, wine at 5. You know what? I should have looked at that one closer and looked it up. Wine at maybe, I don't know, some percent or ounces. I can't quite figure that one out. Any of you have any ideas on that one? Wine at 5?
The slippery slope.
No wonder it's on the side there too. You start drinking it and you're going to go down the side of that hill. So, so anyway, eating well, eating wisely, okay? Because what you put in your body makes a difference. The right outlook on life. Okay, yeah, it's attitude, that 80% attitude thing. What kind of outlook do you have? Because a lot of elderly people, you know, and sometimes I want to admit it, I struggle with purpose. I'm not active as a staff nurse anymore. So I figure, am I doing any good? What am I doing? And so, you know, I'm wondering, am I having the same impact teaching in it and being involved in other areas where healthcare is needed? You know, am I still maintaining that purpose? And at what point am I downshifting? It's like, oh God, I'm not going 90 anymore. Whoo, let's slow it down. Let's downshift. I don't want to go at 100 miles an hour down the hill. I want to downshift. Let's put it into third or second gear or first gear. And maybe you want to be more careful as part of your outlook too. Maybe wisdom has taught you to do that. Yeah, this makes me think of my parents, both of them. Pearls of wisdom, you know, it's kind of like, gosh, in certain sayings I heard my mom say all the time, it's like, where do you get those, Mom? I have no clue where you got those. And there's a time where we didn't have the internet. You couldn't so easily look these things up. You know, or my dad is kind of like, gosh, I need to go to encyclopedia, dictionary, physical dictionary. Anyway. And then at the top is actually exercise. And, you know, that could be walking, any kind of movement naturally. And I want to say you're motivated to do too. I think that you could put these two together and there's some interplay. So that's why I put the two pyramids right next to each other. Gosh, I forgot to stop and ask if there are any issues, questions, concerns. Anything out there in Zoom land? Is there anybody out there in Zoom land?
I'm here. It looks.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Were there any questions or issues, or did you have anything to add? I always love to hear anybody add something because I don't have the bottom line on anything.
Well, I'm stuck with the notion that pyramids are a focus here.
No, well, it is for the person who made the pyramid, I suppose. Maslow's makes sense to me because how can you reach self-actualization if you can reach it at all if you don't have some of those layers below it already secure or secured. However, I think at some point in life, some of those areas that you think are secure aren't secure anymore. So you may end up not being as high in that pyramid or ever reaching self-actualization again. It's just a model. It's just a model. It's one that was, I remember in psychology, sociology, that's where I heard about it the first time. And then in nursing, they took it up in a big way. So, yeah, and the other pyramid, again, it's not the one I wanted, but I think it expressed the idea I was going for. So that's all. That's the only reason, John. Any other questions? Concerns? All right, moving on, because there aren't too many slides left. So you can see that health and wellness can be a lot more than, say, simply eating, right? Yeah, or exercising regularly. It's the other things that are not as tangible, I guess. And this quote stuck with me. And this was from a psychologist, and it's from this book. It's not what the older person eats, but with whom that will be the deciding factor. So with whom they're eating with, who they're with. And, do they want to prepare? Do they want to take care of themselves as a person? If it matters to someone else, maybe besides you, because maybe at some point in your life, you figure it doesn't matter to you anymore. And maybe you feel that way. So maybe you definitely want to you still want to make a difference with somebody else, but you also want to fulfill that need, that social need. And I can see that. I can see that because of that discussion I had with a patient. Why should I? Why should I care? Why should I care? It's like my grandfather. Nothing tastes good to me anymore. Why should I eat this? Because I'm here with you. That's right. Well, yeah, I'm here with you. So, yes. So that's one you can ponder for a little while if you haven't figured that out. And why socialization and sharing time with others makes a difference in your life. Because you can literally die of loneliness. And actually, that's somewhat of an epidemic from what I hear. I haven't looked into it, but I've heard that is a factor, a major factor.
So when a spouse dies, the other one could.
That broken heart Dr. Bucaputnam talked about, that's a real thing. And it is not necessarily uncommon for the other spouse to die very soon after. They say, from a broken heart. Well, it's something up here and something here that's going on. Yeah. That's a concern.
Even if they're healthy. I mean, I can understand if someone's not healthy, the survivor.
That's a good question, Paul. Whether they're healthy or not, does it make a difference? I suppose you could take different attitudes about that.
I keep thinking of that shooting that happened in that one in Texas where the two teachers and then the husband of one of them, he had a massive heart attack at the next, either later that day or the next day.
Yes.
But he looked like he was not on the beast side.
Yeah, well, he may have been healthy or otherwise. But yeah, it's hard to tell, hard to know. But yeah. I like the last sentence in the next paragraph. Food gives a shared meaning when it is shared with someone else. There's a shared meaning to food. Food is food. You can stare at it, look at it, it's there. But if you're not taking part in it, or if you're not there with other people taking part in it, maybe it's doesn't have the same kind of meaning or go down as well or as enjoyable, etc. Because we're thinking individuals, we're thinking creatures, we have feelings, we have thoughts. This is not just like a robot. No, it's not, and that goes into everything we do. And they lose the will to care for themselves. That usually follows. Because if you're not preparing food for yourself, then maybe you're not caring about how you look. Maybe you're not caring about hygiene. Maybe you don't care about following up with a doctor. Maybe you don't care about getting outside and walking or doing anything. And that is a downhill run. And it could be I want to say a steep downhill run. So that's food for thought. I still think about that. I would say too, it's important when you're younger to develop strategies for dealing and coping when you get older, because most of us are going to face some of these things as we age. It's what you do. It's a strategy. It's how you deal with it that, makes a huge difference, because we're going to lose some control. There's no doubt of that. But how do you deal with it when someone else has control over your life in some way? Maybe not 100%, but maybe 25% or 30% or 40%. You may not give your consent to it, but in many cases it happens. So what are your processes of thinking, and how are you going to deal with that in order to make the best out of a situation like that? It's real. This is a real thing. Yeah. Okay, in the next paragraph, arriving at maturity with as healthy a mind and body as possible. I suppose that should be our main goal. I think about that a lot. There's nothing I can do about the genetics that I inherit. However, there's a lot I can do about maintaining this and maintaining this. So there's a lot I can do. I can influence it in the right direction, not the wrong direction. So it means cultivating a lot of things in your life. Food, good food, nutritious. So diet, exercise, socialization as well. But starting younger with these things sets a pattern. It's not saying that if you start when you're older, that somehow is bad because you should have done it younger, but doing it at any age is a good thing. It's good, though, to start that pattern when you're younger so that you will keep up with that pattern when you're older. That's the point. We all have certain advantages and disadvantages because none of us, we don't have the same upbringing. We don't have the same body. We don't have the same genetic inheritance. We don't have the same attitudes in life. So we have, I guess I would call those credits and debits, and that's why I put that in there. Credits and debits. We all have different credits and debits. And how we deal with that helps to determine maybe where we're headed in life. I spent too much time on this slide. I'm sorry. There's just like a whole lot in here. That's kind of why I just took it little at a time. So here's part of, this has been an initiative long before Healthy People 2030. It was included in a little way in Healthy People 2010. Healthy People 2020 came around, and overall goals in health for the older individuals started to take off more. Healthy People 2030, which we're coming to, that has expanded greatly because the population of individuals 65 and older is growing. And so this is why the new healthy initiatives make a lot of sense to me. I couldn't get them all down here. There are so many of them aimed just at the older individuals, because this is a huge initiative, Healthy People. It's huge. So I could read these off to you, but I think you can read these off and get the idea. A lot of these also, I want to say a lot of the things, these had impacts on me as a nurse, because I worked spinal, I worked orthopedics, I worked telemetry when I was a staff nurse. So I saw a lot of hospital admissions for a lot of these reasons. Fractures, diabetes out of control, tooth decay. I covered oral health in the last one. And what are the implications of teeth that are rotting and falling out? And I want to say lesions, septic lesions that start in the mouth. So that's why I wanted to include these, because this is part of an initiative that's just going to grow over time. So, any questions? I mean, I put underneath there so much to this issue. I was looking up articles. I looked up websites by this hospital, that hospital, the NIH, CDC, and ad nauseum. I thought there is so much, but knowing too that this is the aging population aging is getting larger and larger. So maybe that's why the shift in focus and more, I want to say more and more of this information out there to the layperson even. The silver tsunami is gaining speed. I first heard that term 10 years ago, and it fits. When you start seeing, the population growth and, and the elderly, oh, and what about the population growth at the other end? It seems to be lagging behind. So, the silver tsunami makes sense. And their silver tsunami age people are using most of the healthcare dollars. And that's the truth. Any way you cut it, they're using most of the healthcare dollars. And I don't know what kind of an impact that has on the cost of everything in healthcare, or the cost being passed on to, some other area. But the cost is there. Do I see it going away anytime soon? No. Because how we take care of ourselves, the number of chronic illnesses we have, granted, it's not a complete picture of wellness. When we're talking about economics, it plays a huge part. Apparently my redactor editor didn't put the D at pleased. Sorry, folks. This is where it requires like 2 or 3 times going over this before I release it. But I think you get the meaning. I like that Health and Human Services has this, in the end, the older individual population at the forefront of Healthy People, initiatives. Glad to see that. Very happy. Anyway, any comments, questions? I mean, I hope this gives you a little bit different perspective on health, being more than just, my labs are all good today. Or, well, my fracture healed. Or something else physically. Or your lungs are clear today. Great. No more pneumonia. Wonderful. But it's more than numbers, statistics. It's more than the tangibles. It's other things surrounding that. It includes that, but there are other things surrounding that. Like that, those circles of all those domains, they're not mutually exclusive. They overlap. So that's why I included that one too. Anybody, thoughts? Additions? Corrections? I'm open to those too. Other than my editing. I know that very well.
I think I've been experiencing, unless I'm just sensitive to it, is when I started getting older, I thought I would not like it. But actually, I'm okay. I've been okay with it, especially since, like you said, socializing. I belong to a couple of meetups, so it's mostly for socializing, along with this cardiovascular.
And that's good,
But I
Paul.
notice that when I'm alone, or like on anywhere, bus or wherever, not all, but sometimes I feel like I'm talked down to, or and it just really irritates me, because sometimes it's I didn't catch it, because I think I have a little hearing problem, loss, maybe or minor. But I don't want to be talked to like I'm a child. I mean, I'm not, when I'm older, I'm not foolish.
I know what you're saying. So, yeah, Paul is mentioning that in certain circles or places or interactions, he feels talked down to either because of his age or either that or his hearing. He's got some hearing loss and he asked can you be clearer? Can you repeat that a little louder perhaps? And so I get what you're saying. And I feel the same way in other circles. For instance, I think I'm the oldest person on staff in two of the classes I teach, one at Betty Irene and one at Sac State. And sometimes I feel like I catch a little of that. So I think I know what you're saying. And I get it.
It's not just in my head.
No, it's not in your head.
I'll get that. I've gotten that for years.
So no, I get that. And that's something as a culture, society that I don't know is being addressed fully enough, if at all. Thing is, what I put to my younger colleagues, I don't say it in a spiteful way, but I let them know where I am, you're going to be also. You're going to be here soon enough. So don't put the age or the look down, because you're coming here too. Oh boy, they didn't like to hear that. But I said, it's honest, it's the truth. If you think you're suspended in a younger age group, you're in a fantasy world. Boy, that goes into a whole nother can of worms, talking about aging. Oh, in different aspects of aging versus this. But, I tend to remind them, I said, look, because I have trouble, I've lost hearing too. That's another reason why I'm having the department downstairs clean my ears out. Get the wax out. So, I don't, yeah, what you just said resonates with me quite a bit, Paul.
I mean, I know Ira doesn't do this, but if he was to talk with technology, I don't take offense to that, because I am challenged. I don't know how to do stuff with my phone.
Me neither. I'm not,
He'd never talk to me that way, but if he did, it would really bother me a whole lot, because, I'm a dummy. when it comes to technology, trying to figure out the computer or whatever. So, I don't, but when it's just simple everyday stuff, I go, okay, I'm not stupid.
No, but that's a good point, Paul. Yeah. Any other thoughts maybe on that or other thoughts? Just throwing that out there.
They dye their hair. Women dye their
Yeah.
hair.
Oh,
Put into that, matronly. viewpoint.
Yeah, I often look at that and I question it. But then I also get questioned, why don't you dye your hair? And I simply put it this way, it's too much trouble. It's too much trouble. I have a twin brother. He dyes his hair. But I don't know. He may have some vanity issues I'm unaware of. I don't know. But no, we're fraternal. So yeah, I've seen that in the form of, oh gosh, dyeing the hair, all kinds of other cosmetic things. I see that in the realm of trying to put off something that they're not at peace with yet, but they're not dealing with it yet either. In other words, they're not choosing to look at this and say, yeah, you know what, I better have a plan and a thought on this and an attitude on this because I'm not getting younger, I'm getting older. So, maybe I should modify my feelings from when I was 25. As I approach 50 or 60, I better, I shouldn't be thinking like that anymore. You might think that way up here, but your body down below is telling you something else. And it doesn't look like it did when you were 25. So, but I have constant thoughts about this all the time regarding myself too. So anyway, that's it, I guess. This is recorded and it's also going to be on the website. Cool. So very good. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate that. And oh, thank you. And I'll see you the next time. No, this was a good subject.
And
This is a
you
very good
from-
subject.